Hello friends, it's Brittany again and welcome back to my channel Under the Radar Books. I'm going to be doing part 2 of my book haul. This is going to be a little bit lesser known books that I haven't heard a lot about on Booktube or local sites or Goodreads or anything like that, so hopefully you guys can find some hidden gems. So first up is The Vanishers by Heidi Julavits, and this is about a young girl whose mother commits suicide, and she is actually a psychic, and she gets drawn in to try to find this missing person, this woman who was an artist, and she figures out that this somehow is all wrapped up with the death of her mother. This sounds really interesting. I love literary books with like a little bit of a supernatural twist. So yeah, I haven't heard too much about it. The cover is brilliant. I got it for a great price. I'm hoping that it turns out to be a really good one. Next up is The Color of Milk by Nell, Leyshon. And I first heard about this on Kirsty's channel, Kirsty on Books, and this was in her Unreliable Narrators video. And I love unreliable narrators, especially child narrators. I think that it's such an interesting voice to read. And so this is about a young girl who lives on a farm with her father. It's 1830s, I believe. And something traumatic happens to her, and she's writing almost in like a diary form to you as the reader, and it just sounds really great. It's a really short book. It's also a beautiful little book. So yeah, I think this will be a quick read, something that I can get into very soon. Next up is Young Woman in a Garden, short stories by Delia, Sherman, and I just stumbled across this online. It is also a magical realism short story book, which I know if you've been watching my channel, you probably know that I love. That's my favorite kind of short stories. And it says, in her long-anticipated first collection, Delia Sherman takes seemingly small moments in the lives of artists or sailors, the light shining out of a window and 2 strokes of an oar it takes to turn a boat, and finds that the ghosts haunting these characters, the magic that imbues them. Here are the hidden lives that make up larger histories, rendered vividly. Here are the gentle tricksters, wise gardeners, fairies, and musicians, all finding beauty and hope and a touch of wild magic. And I just think that sounds great. So if you love short stories, check this one out. Next up is Byrd by Kim Church. I think I heard about this on Book Riot as well. And this one is about 2 children in the 1970s, a girl and a boy. They befriend one another. They're both kind of outcasts. One's very bookish, one's a musician, and they kind of grow up together, and I believe that they fall in love, and they accidentally conceive a child, and I believe the woman ends up putting their son Byrd up for adoption without telling or the man. And I believe it's just their story as a family. It sounds kind of tragic, a little bit dark. I think it also looks quite brilliant. So next up, I have The Moon Dwellers by David Estes, and this I believe is a YA dystopian book, and it is about Earth where humans are forced to live underground, and the main character, Adele, is wrongfully accused of something. She ends up in this deep prison within the Earth, and some type of war or conflict breaks out, and she ends up having to escape from the prison and find out the truth about her parents, and she gets kind of wrapped up into this conspiracy. I know it's going to be very exciting. It's going to be a quick read. I believe this is a trilogy, I want to say. This was quite hard to get a hold of, but it just sounded so promising. It has really great reviews on Goodreads, so I'm really excited to get to it. If you love YA dystopia, this might be something you want to look into. Next up is Familiar by J. Robert Lennon. This is about a woman who is upset with her life. She just kind of feels like everything's monotonous. She's not very happy in her marriage. And one day she's driving home in her car, and she is looking at herself in the mirror, and she starts to realize that she starts to change physically. Her appearance changes. Eliza Brown is on a long drive home when a crack in her windshield vanishes. She notices other changes too. Her body's curvier, her clothes and car are different. Back home, she has a new job, a sturdier marriage, and disturbingly altered sons. Has she had a psychotic break or entered a parallel universe? Her quest for answers hinges on seeing herself as she really is, something that might be impossible for Elisa or anyone. So this sounds really interesting. I saw this on Powell's.com, one of the places where I order some of my books, and this was one of their indispensable picks that they send out every month. It's like a subscription service, and they usually pick really interesting under the radar kind of books, and so I definitely just wanted to order this and give it a try. Next is The Listeners by Lena Zumas. This was also one of Powell's indispensable picks, and this is about Quinn, whose sister dies when she's young, and she is trying to cope with her death for, you know, the rest of her life and getting ways to deal with it. I believe it deals with depression and anxiety and overcoming those things and how you deal with those things. And it just sounds really great. It's also a beautiful book. It's got the French flaps and the deckled edges. And yeah, it just sounds really interesting. I haven't heard anybody talk about it, and I'm excited to get into it. Next up is The Good Inn by Black Francis and Josh Frank. And the drawings are by Stephen Appleby. This is actually loosely based off of the true story. And I don't know what this is about, really. I know it has something to do with, I believe, World War II, with French filmmaking, with art, and a love affair between a soldier and an innkeeper's daughter, I believe. But one of the reasons why I wanted to try it is because it is illustrated. It's like part graphic novel almost, part story, and it just looks really interesting. Like I said, I really like these type of multimedia books. I think it just gives so much more to the story. So, and I really like the artwork inside. It looks like it's going to be a really quick read. So I will let you guys know what I think. Next up is The World to Come by Dara Horn. And this is about a $1 million painting that is stolen from a museum during a cocktail hour. And the person who stole it is actually a young child prodigy, and he believes that it belonged to his parents. And so he's stealing it back because he wants it back into his home. It rightfully belongs to him. And it just sounds really interesting. I believe it follows his story, just the backstory of what happened to his parents, and if he gets away with the crime, and all that kind of stuff. And just sounds really interesting. I've heard good things about Dara Horn's writing. I believe she has 3 novels out, so I was really excited to start one of her novels and see if I like her writing. Next up is The Housekeeper and the Professor by Yoko Ogawa. And this is about a man who has short-term memory loss, and he can only remember like the last 80 minutes, I believe, of what has happened to him. And so he hires a housekeeper to come take care of him, and she brings her son, and they end up developing this beautiful relationship. It just sounds really beautiful, and I'm really excited to see if Yoko Ogawa is a author that I enjoy. I also have a short story collection of hers, and so I'm really excited to get started. Next up is Little is Left to Tell by Stephen Hendricks, and I heard about this on Jen Campbell's channel. A recent video she did, she talked about this, and I immediately paused the video, went out and bought it. I had to have it when I heard about what it was about. So I believe this is about a man telling like bedtime stories to someone, and it just sounds brilliant. It's got a great cover. I'm really excited to get to this one, and I know that if Jen likes it, I'll probably like it. We have very similar tastes, and I love her book recommendations, so I think I'll love this one. Next up is In Between Dreams by Iman Verjee, and I think I just stumbled across this one online as well. This is about Frances, who is growing up in Canada. When she's 14, her grandmother is found dead in a bathtub, and Frances is sent away to boarding school. And the story alternates between Frances's story while she's at boarding school and kind of like a coming of age story, and also with her father's story and his past, and just about secrets and burdens, and it just sounds really interesting. It also has wonderful reviews on Goodreads, and I'm really hoping to get to it. And the last book in this haul is The Night Rainbow by Claire King, and this was also on Kirsty's Unreliable Narrators video, and it is also a child narrator. And the back says, under the sweltering heat of summer sun, 5-year-old P and her vivid imagination run wild in the meadows behind her home on the edge of a small village in southern France. P's father died in an accident, and now she has only her little sister Margot for company. Their mother is too sad to take care of them and has withdrawn to a place where P cannot reach her no matter how hard she tries. When P meets Claude, a neighbor who seems to love the meadow as she does, she wonders if he could be their new papa. But what secret is Claude hiding? Like I said, I really love child narrators. Also another short one. Sorry, my son's crying. So yeah, if you also enjoy unreliable narrators, I'm sure you will like this one also. I have a feeling that Jen Campbell might have talked about this one as well. So you can't get much better recommendations than Kirsty and Jen. So I will leave all the links to the booktubers I'm mentioning down below. Please go check out their channels. They're all wonderful. And thank you so much for watching. Please leave comments about the books that I've picked out, if you've heard of any of them, if you want to read them. And let's get talking. So thank you so much again, and happy reading.